Christine, do you mind calling roll?
Certainly. Well, actually, John, would you start the live stream, please?
We're rolling.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This is the regularly scheduled bi-monthly meeting of the Architectural Review Board. The Review Board is a city board appointed by City Council to serve on a volunteer basis. The board is charged by city law to review new construction and exterior changes within Mobile's historic districts. Due to the necessity of following CDC guidance and local and state orders, the meeting is being conducted remotely, and the public may follow the proceedings via a live stream on the city's website. Anyone wishing to address comments to the board may either send those comments in writing by email or the U.S. Postal Service to the Historic Development Office, being sure to include one's name, home address, and the agenda item being addressed, or contact the Historic Development Office to be placed on the list of speakers in the Zoom meeting. Comments and requests to speak in the meeting must be received by 5 p.m. on the day before the ARB meeting to ensure consideration by the board. Staff will introduce each application to the board and briefly outline the request. At that time, the chair will convene a public hearing to review the application. All comments must be addressed to the board. After comments from the applicant, the chair will ask for comments from concerned parties. Members of the public wishing to address the board in the meeting will be admitted to the meeting from the Zoom waiting room when their item of interest is announced. The concerned parties will be introduced to the board and the applicants. After comments from the applicant and concerned parties, the board will determine the appropriate action for the request. When the item of interest is concluded, the concerned parties will be returned to the Zoom waiting room. Following the meeting, staff will generate correspondence notifying the applicant of the board's actions. Appeals of the review board concerning building issues are heard by City Council. There is a 15-day period to file the notice of appeal with the city clerk. I will note two items, one item up front, so just so a few people who were in the meeting early heard this, but I will announce it for everyone. There are 3 items on the agenda today that were designed by members of the ARB, and the members of the ARB may participate in the meeting as board members for items that they are not associated with as designers. Therefore, Ms. Huffman may participate in the meeting on items 1, 3, and 4, but not item 2. And Mr. Stone may participate in the meeting on items 1 and 2, but not 3 and 4. I'll now call roll. Craig Roberts.
Here.
Jim Wagner.
Here.
Katarina Eccles.
Here.
Joseph Rodriguez.
Here.
Kathleen Huffman.
Here.
Steve Stone.
Here.
Janelle Adams.
Here.
Is there anyone I've missed?
Andre.
Thank you, Andre.
And Carrie Martin. Christine,
Thank you,
you
Carrie.
said Carrie Martin. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I should start by asking for a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Do I have a
Second.
second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any objection? The meetings are approved. I would like someone to read the agenda item that allows us to proceed via Zoom as opposed to an actual public meeting.
I move that the Architectural Review Board find that all agenda items listed for the February 3rd, 2021 Architectural Review Board meeting be adopted as necessary for the performance of the ARB's essential minimum functions.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll second that, Steve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
objections? All right, the agenda item passes. I would like to have a motion to approve the bin month, but before we do so, I would like to mention something, and that's probably something everybody noticed as well. There are a lot of applications for roof repairs and replacements. In some of them, I could tell they were replacing with like, but in many of them, I cannot tell what they're replacing the original roof with. I think that's something that needs to be clarified because I've noticed quite a few historic clay roof tile roofs that have been replaced with architectural shingles, asphalt shingles. So I'd just like to bring that to the board's attention before we vote.
Wouldn't the staff, those are staff approved, right? So doesn't the staff, Christina, what is your reply to her?
We generally will not approve a change in roofing material unless it is from asphalt shingles to a metal roof on an appropriately styled building. For instance, if there are asphalt shingles on a cottage, like a bungalow type house, and the request is to change to standing seam metal, that has been deemed an appropriate change previously, and we do issue COAs for that. We do not issue COAs for changes in roofing material. If, for instance, it is from asphalt to, or I'm sorry, from clay tiles to asphalt or standing seam metal, those items are referred to the ARB.
That's perfect. But when we read it, I couldn't really tell because in some of them it says with like, sometimes it says from one to the other, but sometimes it doesn't say at all what it is. So it would be good for us as we review this to know precisely what it is so we can approve it, knowing what we're doing.
We can elaborate.
Okay, cool. And then the other
Thank you.
one was number 8, which is a project to construct a 22 by 24 open carport pergola on an existing concrete slab. That's a big structure, and I'm not sure where it is in relation to the house.
It is at the far northwest corner of the property.
Okay, so it
So
wouldn't be
it's
visible.
not at all, and it's behind an existing solid wall that is around the property.
Perfect. Thank you, Christine. I just needed clarification.
Sure.
All right. Do I have a motion now to approve the mid-month?
I make a
I
motion
move
to,
that we approve the mid-months as submitted by staff.
Do I have a second?
second, Craig.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody has any conflicts? Okay, so it passes. All right, so now the public hearing portion of the meeting is going to begin. And I would like the board to be ready to consider the first application. Christine, will you please introduce the first application?
I certainly, the board has already heard the staff analysis for this proposal. If the board is amenable, I would like to read only the staff recommendation. However, if the board would like to have the analysis repeated, I certainly will read it.
Christine, weren't we supposed to say something that we've been doing before this? There's the little paragraph that we have to say.
We did
About-
already.
We did that?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody read that? Okay, sorry.
Jim did.
Christine, I would just ask, have there been any other communications with the staff from the public regarding this application?
Well, the 5 members of the ARB did meet with staff from the architectural engineering department in a design review meeting on site last Monday. It was very productive, and a record of that meeting was forwarded to all the board members, I believe it was yesterday. so that you know what occurred at that meeting. Since that time, the president of the Church Street East Neighborhood Association did contact my office. She did want to speak at this meeting. However, she is unable to, but she wished to express Church Street East support of this application.
May I
Thank you.
say something, Katerina?
Sure, go ahead.
So it was a very productive meeting, and, you know, I, like many other board members, had questions that had not been, we felt, fully covered, but Jacob and the city there did a great job of explaining everything we needed to know. And in the end, I certainly will support this because there are those lanterns that have the little mantle type gas flames that these LED bulbs.
That's too bad.
Something happening? Anyway, so I
That boy
support
girl
it.
need a seasoning, Roger.
What is all that?
That boy girl need a loading it.
Somebody has some more activity going on. So anyway, I just wanted to give my support to this after we talked thoroughly about it, and I understand it now. And it will certainly replicate the lights with the gas lanterns with the mantles in them, which do exist there. And then they want to use all the parts that are salvaged on the other actual flame gas lanterns in the historic districts wherever they can be used. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Craig. I don't know if we've jumped ahead in the process, but I appreciate knowing that.
Well, so in that case, are we ready to go ahead and do an approval of the application and as it was presented originally and further elaborated upon when we met?
Well, I'll make the motion if necessary. Do we need to make a motion now so we can vote?
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, this is Joseph. I make a motion that we accept the proposal for the new gas lanterns in Spanish Plaza. As is.
Don't we have to go through the regular application procedure?
Yes, there
Okay,
needs to be
well,
motion to
here's-
find facts.
Hey, Joe,
Yeah,
let me do that right now, okay? I make a motion, we find facts as written by staff.
Second, Steve.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
objections? Motion passes. Do I have a motion that the application does not, well, go ahead.
I make a motion that this application does not impair the historic integrity of the neighborhood district and be granted a COA.
Have a second?
Okay, so sorry about that.
Second, Steve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The application passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob and Brad.
Thank you all for all of your consideration. We do appreciate it.
And I thank you, the city, as well, for all the collaboration that we had and looking forward for more.
Great work.
Thank you. Appreciate it, team.
All right, Christine, let's move on to the next application. At this point, if any member of the board needs to recuse himself or herself, please do so. So the next application is 62 Sams Avenue. The applicant is Kathleen Huffman in behalf of Brett Simmons and Joanne Wilson. Welcome, everybody.
Hi,
Christine, do you
Kathleen
wanna-
Hoffman. I recuse myself from this vote.
Thank you, Kathleen. Christine, do you want to present the application?
Certainly. The subject property, 62 Sims Avenue, is a contributing property within the Old Dolphin Way Historic District. The application under review involves the construction of a rear addition to accommodate 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. Per the guidelines, additions should be placed to the rear or side of the historic building whenever possible. The proposed addition to the house will be placed to the rear of the existing house. The guidelines further instruct that additions should be differentiated from the main mass of the original structure by using a physical break or setback from the original historic wall to visually separate the old from the new. The proposed addition would be set back by 2 feet from the north elevation of the house, and it would be separated from the original mass of the house on the south side by the proposed inset porch, differentiating it from the original structure. The guidelines instruct that additions should be designed to be compatible in massing and scale with the original historic structure, matching the foundation and floor heights in addition to those of the historic building. The foundation height of the proposed addition would match that of the existing house. The massing and scale of the addition would be compatible with the historic house as its approximate 660 square foot footprint would clearly be subordinate to the historic house, which has a footprint of approximately 1,457 square feet, according to the county's tax assessor website. The guidelines state that the exterior walls of additions should be designed to be compatible in scale and rhythm with the original historic structure. Compatibility means that the height of an addition is proportionate with the historic building, with floor heights on the exterior of the addition designed in a fashion that reflects the floor heights of the original historic building. As noted above, the floor height of the proposed addition would match the floor height of the existing house, and the overall height of the additions would be lower than the original block of the house by 10 inches to 2 feet 3 inches. The compatibility of the walls of new additions includes the materials in which the addition is clad. The guidelines state that exterior materials and finishes that are comparable to those of the original historic residential structure in profile, dimension, and composition should be used. The proposed addition would be clad in wood siding to match the existing house. The roof of an addition should be designed to be similar in shape, pitch, material, and level of complexity to the existing historic building. The proposed addition would be topped with a rear gabled roof matching the original roof in pitch, material, and complexity. The guidelines further encourage the incorporation of soffits, cornices, fascia, frieze board, moldings, or other elements into an addition that are generally similar to those of the historic house. The fascia and exposed rafter tails of the proposed addition would match those of the existing house in accordance with the guidelines. The doors and doorways of additions should be compatible with those of the historic building, including material and dimensions. All 5 windows in the proposed rear addition would be windows reused and relocated from the existing house. The proposed French doors on the south elevation of the addition would not match any doors currently existing on the house. However, they would vaguely recall the pane and panel front door, thereby being compatible with and distinguishable from the historic structure. The guidelines state that the foundations of additions should be compatible with those on the historic building, matching the type, height, and materials whenever possible. The proposed addition would be placed on brick-faced piers to match the existing house in type, material, and height. The use of similar detailing to that found on the existing historic structure is encouraged by the guidelines. Use details that are similar in character to those on the historic building. Such detailing should match in profile, dimension, and material. The proposed addition would include detailing such as fascia boards and exposed rafter tails that would match those found on the existing house. The windows and additions should be compatible with those of the original historic building, including size, place, and spacing. The windows proposed for the addition are windows reused from the existing house. The windows would be irregularly spaced, as are the existing historic windows, in accordance with the guidelines. The proposed side porch will be covered by an integral gabled roof in conformance with the guidelines, which instruct Design a rear porch so that its height and slopes are compatible with the original historic structure. The guidelines further instruct that new porches should be compatible in scale, proportion, and character with the existing historic building. Foundation heights should match, and the materials used for the porch should be appropriate to the historic building. The proposed porch would have a footprint of approximately 64 square feet, which would be approximately 4% of the footprint of the existing house and approximately 3% of the enlarged house's footprint. It would be simple in character with no complicated ornamentation. Therefore, the proposed porch would be in conformance with the guidelines. Staff recommendation. Based on section B above, staff believes the proposed construction of a rear addition to the house would not impair the architectural or historic character of the subject property or the surrounding district. Staff recommends approval of the application.
Thank you, Christine. Who's representing this application?
I believe the owner of the property, Ms. Anderson, is here.
No,
Yes,
I'm representing. This is Kathleen.
Kathleen, so you're going to be presenting the application to us?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
well, welcome. Is there anything else you want to add to Christine's narrative?
I will say this, I had spoken with the owner yesterday, and they have requested that we do the lattice panels between the brick piers. We had initially had the lap siding going down to the grade, which I know is unusual, but it was in an effort to match what was existing out there. Excuse me. But they have requested that we go with the lattice panels. If I need to make any markups or anything on that and redo this, just let me know. Not exactly sure. But they would be wood lattice. So
Okay, we can add that when we find the facts.
Would that be only on the addition that you're doing? The lattice, you're not going to redo the whole house, right? Just the lattice for the addition?
just for the addition, yes. Well, now I say that. So probably what we're going to end up doing, because we're going to be disturbing that existing, in the picture that you're seeing on the screen, you see the existing rear of the house. You can tell where there was originally an open porch, but that has been closed in to create a laundry room area. Because we are going along and we'll be disturbing the sides of the house, we will be go ahead and adding the lattice to the sides of the house as well. The front elevation currently has a brick veneer all the way around the front. So yeah, you can see that in the picture right there. So beyond the front porch is it's kind of a mishmash of open spaces, because they've been doing some work at the house, revising some plumbing on the interior and fixing that. So currently, but we will make sure that everything around the exterior that's not brick will be infilled with lattice below the lap siding.
Okay, thank you. Is anybody else on the phone that's here for this application? Okay, does the board have any questions? No?
Kathleen, I would just ask, so are you then saying you are amending the application to state that you'll add the lattice on the side and rear elevations of the property?
Of the addition?
Yes.
Of the
I would say
addition?
that I'm amending the application. I would say that I'm amending the application to add the lattice below the lap siding around the northeast and south elevation.
Understood. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I will make this is Steve. I'll make a motion then that to find facts as amended to add the lattice panels at the addition as mentioned by the applicant.
Second.
This is Jim. I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objection? The motion passes. Do I have a motion for approving the COA?
I'll make a motion that the project does not impair the historic integrity of the building or district and should be granted a COA, the state.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second. Craig.
All in favor?
Oh, sorry. Aye.
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 Any objections? Okay, it passes. Congratulations. You ready to go? When you define the lattice, though, we assume it's a wood lattice, correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Katerina, I'm going to recuse, this is Steve, I'm going to recuse myself from the next two applications, but I will be available to assist the applicants with any questions.
Thank you very much, Steve. So the next application is 908 Augusta Street, and the applicant is Elizabeth Anderson. Christine, will you please read the application?
The subject property, 908 Augusta Street, is located within the Oakley Garden Historic District. The application under review involves the demolition of an existing side rear porch and the construction of a 591 square foot addition to accommodate an additional bedroom and bathroom, a new master bath, and a new laundry room, and the construction of a new 208 square foot porch on the rear elevation. The application proposes to remove the existing rear side gallery porch in order to add indoor living space to the house. The guidelines instruct preserve an original gallery or porch on a house. Although it is not known whether the gallery is original to the house, it appears on the 1904 Sanborn map, which means the gallery is considered historic or over 50 years old. Given the lower roof line and subordinate stature of the wing to which the gallery is attached, it is likely the gallery was part of the original kitchen wing or perhaps a separate kitchen building that was later attached to the house and may not have been original to that wing or the building. Per the guidelines, additions should be placed to the rear or side of the historic building whenever possible. The proposed addition to the house will be placed at the rear of the existing house. The guidelines further instruct that additions should be differentiated from the main mass of the original structure by using a physical break or setback from the original historic wall to visually separate the old from the new. The addition would be partial width and would step back approximately 15 feet from the plane of the west elevation of the existing house. The addition, including the proposed porch, would advance approximately 13 feet from the northernmost plane of the existing house. The existing corner board at the northeast corner of the house would be maintained to differentiate the rear addition from the original eastern elevation of the house. The guidelines instruct that additions should be designed to be compatible in massing and scale with the original historic structure, matching the foundation and floor heights in addition to those of the original building. The foundation heights of the proposed addition and porch would match that of the existing house. The massing and scale of the additions would be compatible with the historic house, as their footprints, approximately 800 square feet altogether, would be clearly subordinate to the historic house, which has a footprint of approximately 1,885 square feet, according to the County Tax Assessor website. The guidelines state that the exterior walls of additions should be designed to be compatible in scale and rhythm with the original historic structure. Compatibility means that the height of an addition is proportionate with the historic building, with floor heights on the exterior of the addition designed in a fashion that reflects floor heights of the original historic building. As noted above, the floor height of the proposed addition would match the floor height of the existing house, and the overall height of the addition would be equal to the original block of the house. The compatibility of walls of new additions includes the materials in which the addition is clad. The guidelines state that exterior materials and finishes that are compatible to those of the original historic residential structure in profile, dimension, and composition should be used. The proposed addition would be clad in wood siding to match the existing house. The roof of an addition should be designed to be similar in shape, pitch, material, and level of complexity to the existing historic building. The proposed addition would be topped with an extension of the existing gabled roof, thereby matching it in pitch, material, and complexity. The guidelines further encourage the incorporation of soffits, cornices, fascia, frieze boards, moldings, or other elements into an addition that are generally similar to those of the historic building. The fascia boards of the proposed addition would match that of the existing house in accordance with the guidelines. The doors and doorways of additions should be compatible with those of the historic building, including material and dimensions. The proposed rear addition would have a single wood pane and panel door with transom on its rear elevation to access the porch. Such a door has precedent, as the existing front entrance is a set of etched pane and panel doors topped by a transom. However, the door proposed for the rear entry would be distinguished by its clear glass and less elaborate design. The guidelines state that the foundations of additions should be compatible with those on the historic building, matching the type, height, and materials whenever possible. The proposed addition would be placed on brick piers to match the existing house in type, material, and height. The use of similar detailing to that found on the existing historic structure is encouraged by the guidelines. Use details that are similar in character to those on the historic building. Such detailing should match in profile, dimension, and material. The proposed addition would include detailing such as fascia boards and windows that would match those found on the existing house. Further, the application states that existing windows will be reused. The windows in additions should be compatible with those of the original historic building, including size, place, and spacing. The windows proposed for the addition would include windows reused from the existing house and new wood 2/2 types to match those on the existing house. The windows would be regularly spaced, as are the existing historic windows, in accordance with the guidelines. The proposed rear porch would be covered by an integral gabled roof in conformance with the guidelines, which instruct design a rear porch so that its height and slopes are compatible with the original historic structure. The guidelines further instruct that new porches should be compatible in scale, proportion, and character with the existing historic building. Foundation heights should match, and the materials used for the porch should be appropriate to the historic building. The proposed rear porch would have a footprint of 208 square feet, which is approximately 11% of the footprint of the existing house. It would be simple in character with no complicated ornamentation, and its roof would be supported by appropriate but understated chamfered posts. The wood materials of the porch are the materials that would have been used historically. Therefore, the proposed rear porch would be in conformance with the guidelines. Staff recommendation. Based on section B above, staff believes the proposed construction of a rear addition and porch would not impair the historic character of the subject building or surrounding district. Staff recommends approval of the application.
Thank you very much, Christine. Who is on the line to represent this application?
I am.
Hi, welcome. Do you have anything to add to the staff presentation?
I don't.
Okay. Is anybody else on the call to talk about this? right? So we can open it to the board. Does the board have any questions?
Just for help me understand the location of this home, am I correct? This is a home that's next to the Joe Kane house?
Correct. Just to the west of it.
Yeah, I think this was Hayes Holmes' house. I guess Ms. Anderson has purchased it from. I'm curious, Steve, I guess my, it's not necessarily objection, but I am curious about the staff's comments regarding the rear gallery potentially being part of a historic kitchen to this house, and we're going to take it off. I'm just wondering what your thoughts on that are, Steve.
Well, without proper documentation on that, I can't really speak to, like, I think even staff admitted we're not really sure of what went on there. What we believe is that where the hall bath is at the end of the porch was the old entrance. So the door, and Liz, you can chime in too if I'm off base on that, but I think the door to the bathroom from the hall was the old door into the off the porch. And the hall bath was added at a later date because it still has the porch ceiling on it. And that window by the tub there is that's the only window we're going to salvage but not reuse it. It looks like it's a double hung window that people have kind of modified and turned it sideways to make kind of a makeshift window in the back there. So that's kind of a long way to say, Jim, like, we just don't know the true history of that porch. So, and it's in pretty bad shape. So we try to keep basically the same size, but oriented to the back instead of the side, which just, happened to work out with our addition.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Is the board ready to make a decision?
I'll make a motion. We find facts as written by staff.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
I make a motion, this application does not impair the historic integrity of the structure or the district and be granted a COA.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our final application is for 508 518 Dauphin Street. The applicant is Matt Lamond on behalf of Jacob Peavy. Welcome. Christine, do you mind reading the staff report?
Certainly. The subject property, 508 to 518 Dauphin Street, is located within the Lower Dauphin Street Commercial Historic District. The application under review involves the removal of facade elements, installation of new storefronts, repair of existing stucco, the installation of new awnings, the infilling of 2 openings on the west elevation and 1 on the north elevation, and the creation of a doorway on the north elevation. Because no early photographs of the subject facade could be located, it is unknown what changes may have occurred prior to 1994. However, based on file survey photos, the facade of the eastern of the 2 subject properties appears very similar to its appearance at that time. However, the westernmost building appears to have experienced changes to both the storefront opening sizes and materials. Therefore, the buildings are most consistent with building condition 2 noted above. The guidelines state preserve character-defining features of the historic commercial facade and preserve the character of the cornice line. Furthermore, the guidelines state that historic doors and doorways should be preserved in their original locations and configurations. Maintain original doorway to emphasize the commercial entrance. The proposed changes to the building facade would preserve both the basic fenestration pattern, if not the light pattern. However, the proposed changes to the storefronts would introduce smaller expanses of glass than currently extant and what historically would have been present. Therefore, the proposed changes to the facade would alter the character-defining pattern of large panes of glass, but would preserve other character-defining features. The guidelines instruct replace the historic storefront to be consistent with the historic location, and if replacement of some material is required, use a material that is similar to that of the original. The proposed replacement storefronts would be in the same location as the existing. However, the new storefronts would be composed of wood rather than metal. Metal would be a more likely material for the time period of the subject properties. The use of wood storefronts in this application would not appear to be in conformance with the guidelines. The approximate location of the main entrances to the storefronts would be maintained in conformance with the guidelines, which state, preserve and repair doors and doorways of a historic commercial building. The guidelines further instruct that original doorways should be maintained to emphasize the commercial entrance. The application proposes the installation of wood doors rather than metal. Wood doors would not seem to be in conformance with the guidelines, which state, if necessary, replace a door in a fashion that is sensitive to the historic commercial character of the building. Use doors with a high proportion of transparent glass. While the proposed doors would be approximately half glass, they would have a much lower proportion of glass than the existing glass doors or other storefront doors of the era of the subject property's construction. It is not known whether the existing windows in the storefront portion of the facade are original to the structure. However, given the apparent non-historic bulkheads, they do not appear to be original. The guidelines direct that, if required, replace original historic windows to be compatible with the windows on the original historic building. Use large panes of glass that fit the original opening for a display window. The guidelines further instruct, unless evidence exists from existing buildings or historic photographs, do not use multi-pane design that divides the storefront window into smaller components. The proposed overhead pivot windows and accordion window panels contain a smaller proportion of glass than the existing storefront windows, and they divide the windows into smaller components in contravention of the guidelines. The application proposes to install metal canopies over the two storefronts. Regarding installation of new awnings, the guidelines offer only the following. If required, replace or add awnings to maintain and keep visible the key features of a historic building. Fit a replacement awning to precise window or door opening. Use an awning with a profile similar to that of a historic awning. The new canopies over the storefront entrances would be of restrained design in keeping with the building's era of construction and composed of materials appropriate to the building. Per the architect, the canopies would closely resemble those found over the entrances to 562 and 564 Dauphin Street, properties of a similar age in the lower Dauphin Street commercial district. These similar canopies were approved by the ARB in 2016. The proposed canopies would not obstruct any key features of the facade and appear to be in conformance with the guidelines. The openings proposed to be properly infilled on the west elevation formerly opened into a building that is no longer extant. The guidelines do not specifically address the infill passages between buildings or openings created when an adjacent building is removed. Similarly, the guidelines do not specifically address changes to fenestration on rear elevations of commercial buildings, as is proposed for the north elevation of the subject property. It should be kept in mind, however, that the secondary elevations of commercial buildings are working elevations intended for deliveries, trash removal, and other tasks not intended for public consumption. Therefore, changes to these elevations, when they become necessary for the efficient conduct of business, do not merit the same level of scrutiny as the changes to the primary facades of commercial buildings. Staff recommendation. Based on section B above, staff believes the proposed replacement of the existing storefronts with wood windows and doors would not be in conformance with the design review guidelines for Mobile's historic districts and would impair the architectural and historic character of the subject property and the surrounding district. Staff believes that the other proposed changes, including the installation of canopies and fenestration changes to the west and north elevations, would not impair the historic character of the subject property or the surrounding district. Staff recommends approval of the changes, not including the new storefronts.
Thank you, Christine. Who's representing this application?
Yes,
Steve.
my name is Matthew Lamond, and my architect, Steve Stowe.
Welcome. Do you have any comments that you'd like to add at this point to the staff's narrative?
No, I'd just like to add in, I appreciate everybody's help with preserving, the downtown. I do own and operate the businesses at 562 through 568 Dauphin Street. Tomorrow will be our 11th anniversary there. And kind of this project is trying to kind of keep in line the visual effect of that block as well, while also trying to keep the integrity of this building. And I believe the accordion style doors were put in place to be a little bit more aesthetically pleasing than just doing a garage, a commercial grade garage door for the facade, and also to kind of mimic the exterior when those doors are closed. So it would help with the integrity of that building, but also add some open air service for the new business.
Matt,
Thank you.
This is Steve. I'm just going to add on as well. As far as staff's comments about possibly less glass than is desired, I think I could speak for Matt that going to full glass doors instead of half panels is certainly a concession I think he'd be willing to make. As far as the breaking up of the rhythm into smaller panels, I mean, there's a couple of things to weigh on that. The old, large, what was there was probably very large panels of single pane glass with very small aluminum extruded corners. And, obviously we can't even come close to building anything close to that with codes down. So that being said, because when we take that into consideration with the operable panels that the client would want, we're not going to have one large panel of glass because that panel would be massively heavy. So the breaking up into, what we thought was a pleasant proportion seemed to be the solution. Other than going to full glass doors, I don't know how we get glass.
The only thing that I would add on the full glass doors, and I do understand that that's the visual presence of the current doors that are there, and keeping that visual with that block. I have 4 businesses in the next block, and the majority, some of them have mostly full glass doors, but the bottom is, has some wood trim to it. Some of them have, wood with some side lights that mimic that. And in the operation effect, it really helps. When we get delivery drivers, they always aren't so thoughtful about using their dollies to open and close doors with the actual dollies. And that's kind of a concern of mine, that the overall financial cost of trying to maintain that. I mean, we paint our front doors once a year just because of that, even with a kick plate on the bottom of those doors. So any consideration with keeping historic doors, but potentially not having them a full glass door would be very appreciative in the long run for, financial and just aesthetic reasons.
That's a good point.
Well, was the staff saying that these should all be metal windows and doors, not wood? Christine? You're talking about glass size. You just got finished talking a lot about glass size, all of you. But what about the comment of staff that they're wood and they should be metal? Is that correct? Christine?
Metal would be more historically appropriate, yes.
Because it's a 60s aluminum and brick building, kind of?
Correct.
Right.
But in that case, are you saying that mill finish aluminum is the only, acceptable alternate?
Well, and I'd go back.
Would have been there as mill finish. I mean, they wouldn't have any powder coated or like we would have now, or Kynar finish or anything like that.
And Craig and others who were on the board back when we were looking at it, if I recall correctly, may not, and I'm trying to draw on just on my memory, but when we were looking at renovations for the structures associated with Moe's Barbecue, I think we approved some wood stuff there as well, which to me sort of falls in the same category. And I'm just speaking, I'm only one vote, but to me, what's being presented, I think actually enhances the streetscape of this area. I appreciate the fact, of course, of historic integrity, but I think the record is fairly thin on what is the history or what we can document as the history here. So from my perspective, I'm looking at what enhances as well as the integrity of the structure. And to me, this makes sense.
Well, Jim, I agree with you, but I understand, as it says in our report, our application here, the staff has written that these buildings were built about 1960. And so if they are themselves historic because they're 1960, they qualify as contributing, then we are, that's one of the things we are supposed to do is require anything that's done to bring it up to this exactly as it was replicated as much as possible for that when it was built. Okay, Steve just outlined some of the difficulties with that with the current code, but on the report, on the staff application, it also talks about these buildings originally, were row houses from the 1870s and 80s. Well, of course, they're not there anymore, I guess. I don't know if parts of them are, but so in this case, these aluminum and brick buildings, aluminum, glass, and brick buildings are contributing. Is that correct, Christine?
That is correct. These are considered contributing elements of the historic district. Yes.
So, of course, Jim, we have bent the rules before, and I agree with what you just said, but I do need to mention that we have to be careful, Steve, as you know too, about approving something that contradicts our ordinance, because in the future, in another given case, they can say, well, you let them do that, so why can't we pull out all our aluminum and glass picture windows and put in much more intricate wood designs because you let them do it. And so we get into that problem again if we change the rules for different people and people get upset. So I don't know what the answer is. I'm just bringing that up.
I mean, the other thing on that is that we're not removing original glass. The stuff that's in there is obviously non-original standard, 7-Eleven storefront that they put in with a low brick bulkhead or low brick on water table at the bottom. So none of that is. It's not like we're removing original to replace it with this.
So we don't know what the original in the 60s. You're saying we don't know what the original glass in this building was from 1960.
There's no documentation that I have seen, and so, you know, we're saying, well, in a period of this, it would be something that we can't go back to today. So it's kind of a, I don't know what the answer is on that, but.
Well, that sort of gives some leeway there, it sounds like, if that's not the original storefront in that building.
And
And
again,
we don't know what it was.
I agree with Jim's assessment that, I mean, we all deal with Dauphin Street every day, and I don't think this would impair the district at all. And that I guess that's what it comes down to, and it certainly doesn't. I don't feel it impairs the building. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
This is Matt Lamont again, and one thing, I mean, these are all great points, and I appreciate the input on this. You know, another thing that I'd like to consider is that, I mean, this is an entire block that's been vacant for many years that we're looking to develop into a nice piece of property for, you know, downtown, so we don't have these continued blocks of empty buildings, and so with trying to think of, you know, the historic side as well as the, you know, the functional 2021 side of items, you know, I definitely appreciate the input, but helping to, you know, consider that we're working to develop, you know, a block into something that would be very nice and would mirror other nice buildings like Moe's and O'Daly's block as well.
Well, that's well said. And I think most of us agree with you. It's just that, and it has nothing to do with you or this project. It's just a general statement of mine that we've run into problems sometimes if we buck our own ordinance. And not that the ordinance is perfect, because this is a good case of perhaps it's not. And, you know, so, you know, I agree with what Jim said and what y'all have said. I just want to bring this up. I think the out here on your behalf is that we cannot trace the original storefront on these 1960 contributing buildings. So therefore, we're at more liberty to change it, perhaps, you see?
Yes, sir.
And I think another point that's important is the district. You know, originally these buildings were put there in the 60s, but there was something else in there before that that probably mimicked the other buildings on the street that we're trying to match now with this new arrangement of windows. So I think that overall, you know, the buildings are pretty much a blank canvas, like most of the buildings in the 60s were. They were just basically a box with some glass, which has its value, particularly if everything in that row kind of mimics that. But these ones were kind of infilled in there and not a little bit out of sync with everything else that surrounds them. So I think this will be a good.
That's a good point too. You know, and as time goes on, you know, all cities who have review boards, historic preservation, are now dealing with this mid-century modern problem with some of these buildings. Some of them were beautifully done, and some of them were cheap and tacky, you know? So that's it. You want to get on with this?
Are we ready to find facts?
I make a motion we find facts as written by staff.
Have a second? Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Do I have?
Yeah, I'll make it. I make a motion this application does not impair the historic integrity of the building or the district and be granted a COA.
This is Jim. I second it.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Do I have any opposed? The motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for bearing with me my first time around. I'll try to do this better next time.
Well, you were good. You did a great job.
You did an
Oh,
excellent job.
Glad it's not me.
I think we have other business, correct?
We do. I guess some of the new businesses has to do with electing. Well, we already did that. So actually, I don't know. Do we have any more?
Did we do a vice chair? I think that's what it, I think that's
Jim is
what-
going to be, Jim Wagner's vice chair.
Yeah, he is.
Pretty volunteer.
A volunteer to stay on. Would you care to officially elect him?
I'll nominate Jim again.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? All right. Jim,
All right,
you're my
guys, you got
partner.
me for better or for worse.
And I would like to mention that the next meeting on February 17th is the day after Mardi Gras. I know that many people do go on vacation over that time, etc. So just keep in mind that if you don't plan to be available, to make sure that you let me and or Bridget know that ahead of time. Thanks.
Also, I want to say, if I have a minute, the Mobile Porch Parade, all the people have decorated for Mardi Gras. So there's all these houses around town, and you can get online if you just Google that Mobile Porch Parade. And Jim Wagner's house is the best one on the parade.
I like the Aztec warriors on the porch. Those are good.
Well, thank you.
I saw those.
Okay.
Those two are actually costumes I wore in previous years. So
I
there
knew
you
it
go.
was. I knew they were.
Christian, I have a question. What makes a quorum now? I thought it was 4 of us.
It's fine.
5? Okay.
It's 5. However, when you have members who must recuse for an item, it is 5 plus 1.
Okay.
That's 6.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks.
Thanks,